we have one of the highest student memberships in all of ASID National, and that's something that we're really excited about. You guys are the future designers of the industry, and we are so excited to have these panelists here to help navigate and share some suggestions with pathways for you to help be the most successful designer that you can.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panels that are going to join us today. So we have Mary Ann Sachs. She is representing the residential design world for us today, and she has her own company, Styled by Design. And then Adrienne Lane Martin is coming to us from Erstad Architects. She's a commercial designer. Darren Bartel is with FiberSeal, an industry partner. And then our other industry partner is Tamara Everson, and she's an independent sales rep, and she actually represents numerous manufacturers like Highland House, Ambella Home, Kayleen, and several more. I think Madeline had mentioned before, if you guys have any questions, attendees, students, please go ahead and drop your questions in the chat if it's something that hasn't been asked, and we'll make sure that we get that to the panelists.
So we're going to jump right into it. So one question I would like to ask Mary Ann, since I see her front and center right on my camera, tell us a little bit about how you entered into this industry.
I have a teaching degree, and shortly after I got that degree, I decided that I wanted to get into the interior design field. So I went to the University of Minnesota and took about 2 years worth of courses and began interning with a local designer there. So I got into interior design through the education end, and it was extremely beneficial to have even just that much education. And then I began in the field right away, and I've never been out of the field. I've been in the industry for 37 years, which is a long time.
So Mary Ann, you're focused more so on residential design, and I'm
Yes.
glad to hear your feedback on that. Adrienne, I know you focus more so in commercial design. How did you enter into the industry?
I've actually always had a passion for art and learned what interior design was around the 6th grade and figured out that that's actually what I wanted to do. I did a mentorship with a local designer in the 8th grade, fell in love with it completely, and honestly, that was my only goal through high school and college. I applied to one school. I went to Iowa State University and applied for the interior design program there, finished a 4-year degree, and then just got straight into interior design. I actually started out doing high-end residential for 5 years in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and then moved to Boise and started doing more. We just have more commercial here. I still enjoy doing residential. We just happen to concentrate more on commercial, and I've been doing it now for a total of 16 years, and I absolutely love it.
Awesome. It's great to hear how some designers do transition a little bit into their role with their career as an interior designer. And Tamara, in speaking with you, I know you had a pretty interesting experience with how you got introduced into the profession. Do you want to give your background on how you entered into the field?
Yeah, when I started out in design school, and I in Nashville, Tennessee, a little she design school right outside of there in Franklin, Tennessee, and I hooked on to architecture right away. So I transferred to the University of Tennessee in architecture, and realized I could not stare at a drafting table. Okay, I was too much of a people person. So then I got into graphic design, and then ended up in advertising. And my dad just kept saying, make up your mind, what do you want to do? So when I got out of school, I worked for a TV station in Nashville, then I managed a recording studio, and then I started getting into interior design for the recording studio. So I designed everything at the studio, and that just little by little led me back into my passion of design. So then I was a designer for many years. And then I realized I just gave everything away because I just wanted, if they couldn't afford it, I just made it at my cost. And I'm great at design, but I was horrible at management. So, and then I was always ordering from all the reps when you're in design. And just one day I got really burnt out from some jobs and I just jumped to the other side. And I'm a great rep because I was a designer on the other end, like all of you getting into design. Just make sure you're organized and everything else. But I love being a rep because as a former designer, I can really relate to my clients. And I've had some awesome, wonderful opportunities and some really cool clients that I work with. So like Sid and Shay McGee, like Melissa and I both, they're our clients and they started from nothing and now they're larger than life. They have their own TV show. Then I rep a rug line that Hillary Farr of Love It or List It has all her rugs on there. So as you get into design, there's so many fun, exciting opportunities. I can't wait to share with everyone. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks, Tamara. And Tamara, I know you do focus mainly on having an open line and repping various manufacturers. But Darren, you have a little bit of a different approach where you, you know, work directly with FiberSeal. Do you want to give your background about how you jumped into the industry?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with FiberSeal, we help maintain the beautiful things that all of you put into the homes. We're a national industry partner. I have a background in marketing and sales. For 27, 28 years, I did product marketing, brand management, product development. So a lot of personal care products, nutrition products, household cleaning products that you may have used, I may have helped develop. And I directed graphics and people to design and prepare the packaging. So I have a background with products, and I got involved with FiberSeal because of the product, but also because of the service level that we maintain with designers. And that's our main purpose, is to help. Once you've had everything put in and you've put your beautiful things in the home, we want to help maintain it for the years to come and help it keep looking good.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren, for your insight on that. I want to transition. I know we're getting into almost late April, coming into May. A lot of you students are preparing your portfolios and seeking that first job experience. And so with that, you know, it's good to have the skill sets of hiring and looking to see what questions are going to be asked during the interview process. So let's see. I'm going to start with Adrian and ask a question directly related to hiring and interviewing. What are some questions you wish you would have thought to ask as an emerging designer during a job interviews?
I was thinking about this when I was reading through the questions, and I think one of them, and it's something that my particular firm is big on, but if you're starting out, there are still always things you guys are reaching for, which I think is great. And a lot of you have been prepped to start thinking about NCIDQ, possibly LEED, AP, anything like that. I have a designer now who just graduated last year and really wants to be a well accredited. I think it's good to ask your employer if they're willing to support you in your further education and your accreditations and anything that you want to do. It doesn't mean they're going to pay for everything, but are they willing to let you explore it while you're at work? Are they willing to let you ask your client questions possibly? There may be other people at work that you can talk to about that same accreditation and study together. My particular firm will pay you back. If you pass those exams, they'll actually reimburse you or let you have time off. So those are the types of things that I think would have been super important. I know at my first job, my particular bosses at the time could care less if I got NCIDQ. And that was a personal goal of mine. So I knew that if I did it, I was still going to do it, but not that I wouldn't get support, but it wasn't like a big thing we talked about or anything that was something to strive for. I'm not sure if I wouldn't have taken the job, but I think it wasn't something I was really thinking about at the time. And I think it should be on your radar if that's important to you.
Yep, I have one chat that got submitted into the question. Adrian, since you brought the topic up, one student asked, what is LEED AP? So can you go into a deeper dive of what that is?
Sure. So LEED is an accreditation organization through the USGBC, and they pay attention to sustainable design, so how you can be more green in your building. And they do everything from homes to schools to commercial buildings, including government. They do kind of everything. So you can work on LEED projects that are certified in that sustainable design. There's different points you can get and things. It just happens to be one of the many certifications that's out there, but that's what LEED AP stands for.
Thank you. Adrian, I would like to hear your input of what are some questions you wish you would have thought to ask as an emerging designer during a job interview? Adrian, or sorry, Marianne.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that I would have asked as an emerging designer is it's really important to have on the job site experience, and I would have asked, you know, what percentage of my time or what percentage of my week is going to be devoted to being on the job site. Now, I'm involved in just residential and mostly new construction, so you don't want your employer to sit you in the library, you know, updating samples. And I mean, that is part of it, but it shouldn't be a large part of it. A new designer needs to know that she's going to have on-the-job experience. And when I say on the job, I mean on the job site. Those experiences are invaluable. They produce other fact-finding questions for the designer. You learn a tremendous amount. It is not in the books. It is not in the books. It's all on the job site. And so that would be super important. And then also I would want to ask my employer, you know, are you able to send me to some of these markets? You know, we've got the High Point furniture market, which is significant in the industry, in the home furnishings sector. You know, even though we're out, well, I'm in St. George, Utah. I practiced in Atlanta, Georgia for most of my life, and going to High Point Market is the best experience a new designer can have if she is entering the residential sector. The other there's significant trade shows. There's the in Las Vegas, the surfaces show. You know, will your employer allow, you know, will she pay for you, expenses paid to go to these shows? It's the only way is to get out there and experience some of these different aspects of this industry.
May jump in just for a minute. What Marianne said is correct, and there's lots of help for you at those shows. Fiber Seal, for example, has a booth at the trade shows, usually at High Point. You are welcome to go in and ask any questions you need to ask about fabrics or how to maintain those fabrics. We're happy to help in any way possible. So there are other sources and other helps available to you while you're there.
Thanks, Darren. Just keeping track of time, we're going to head to the next category of our panel discussions. Getting into the field, what is something you wish you knew starting out in your career? And I'm going to direct this question first to Tamara. And we lost Tamara again. Adrian, would you mind answering the question? Hopefully you're able to hear that one.
Sorry. I want to take
some of the challenges with virtual.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think it's being more purposeful with my design choices and feeling that confidence. I always call it fake it till you make it, but it's really hard to get that confidence when you first start out, and your boss or your mentor is always going to ask you all these questions. And I remember my boss saying, don't be so flippant about it. And I didn't quite understand what flippant meant. And it was just kind of oh, I just picked it. Or, you know, if it was a fabric or something like that, it's like, have a reason. It doesn't need to be like a full story behind every selection, but have a reason in why you're doing what you're doing, whatever that task may be. And I think it will start to make more sense if you put more thought into everything and then have a reason. You'll find it's easier to talk to clients, it's easier to talk to your boss, and you'll just gain that confidence more and more the more you just give yourself, you like make that confidence happen by giving a reason.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
that's so true with like ASID's mantra of design impacts lives, right? What is the
Mhm.
purpose that you're selecting these finishes? What's the purpose that you decided on that circulation pattern? Bringing it to really have meaningful connections to the users in that space. Yep,
Mhm.
great answer. Tamara, are you able, let's give you one more opportunity to try. It must be your audio, your internet. You know, as your students are coming into the workforce, looking at professional organizations and involvement, how has membership in professional organizations like ASID benefited you in your career? Let's start with Darren to answer this question.
Thank you. So with FiberSeal, again, we're national industry partners. And so we have 68 offices for FiberSeal around the country. And all of our offices are involved with ASID. And that meaning we want to assist designers in any way that we can. On our website, fiberseal.com, it has a space that is a designer corner that will give you information on fabrics and how easy they are to maintain. It's listed by fabric, but the way it helps us is it gives us a connection to you. We want you to be successful. We want you to put things that are functional into the homes as well as beautiful, because we want your client to be happy. And at the end of the day, we hear from the client sometimes the things that maybe they didn't really like that much or that weren't done the way they wanted to. And we want it to be functional. We want it to be helpful to them so that at the end of the day, we can say, oh, Marianne is the best designer we know, and she does a great job. And we want to be able to continue to talk about you and help you. So with ASID, we do CEU credit training. We do all types of things. We provide information to you on the website so that designers can be successful and so that we can help support you in what you do.
Great, thank you, Darren. We are running out of time, but I do want to just ask one question to Mary Ann. What skill sets are you looking for new employees to advance your business, brand, and client outreach?
Okay, right off the bat, it would be super important to have a student that is proficient in SketchUp and Revit. More and more my residential design projects are requiring this. The client, it helps the client to make better decisions by, using these programs and being able to output room design in 3D, et cetera, et cetera. And especially with new construction and the fact that all we have are those architect plans. We're not, they can't see anything until, way after drywall is when they start to understand really what their space is about. So up until that point, it's super important to be able to work with the client and use these tools to help the client understand what they are going to live in. So that would be a very important requirement for me to be able to use those programs.
Okay, sorry, what was that? We had some audio connections. Can you repeat that last few sentences?
Oh, I just said that it would be extremely important to me as an employer to have a new designer come in with those two skill sets of being proficient on those two programs.
Okay, yeah, because you mentioned specifically SketchUp and Revit. One student entered in the chat. They wanted to know if you believe that CAD is still relevant.
Yes, CAD is still relevant because there are architects that are, well, there's, the architects that use CAD, right? And a lot of them are from the older school. But, the architects coming out of, like, for instance, the U of U, they're working on Revit. So CAD is still relevant. There are architects that use CAD, but a lot of them are using Revit right now. And so we like to align ourselves with what, the architects are using so that we can communicate through those documents that are produced from those programs.
Yep.
I work for an architecture firm, and we do both actually still. It took a
Mm.
while for our firm to jump over to Revit. Everything new, we typically go into Revit, but we've been working on buildings for tenant improvements for years, and they're still
Yeah.
all in CAD, and nobody
Yeah.
has time or takes the time to put it into Revit, so we just do CAD. And the amount of people who can do CAD in my office are slim. I'm one of them. But
Right.
it's still a
Me
great
too.
program. If you know it, it's right. It's easy to get into Revit. So I feel like you can
It is.
kind of teach. I taught myself Revit. I didn't like go to any classes or anything. And
Oh, you did?
so,
Wow.
yeah. So, I mean, you can do both. I jump back and forth into both all the time. But Revit, to be honest, is more for the 3D aspect. You
Yeah.
can't really do that in CAD. So
Right.
I'd say
Yeah,
it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And one thing I would like to bring as a point of view, you know, my firm, we do work in both. I would say we work primarily in Revit, but when we are working with consultants, a lot of their drawings tend to be in AutoCAD, where we have to export our Revit drawings to give to them, or take their imports and import it into our Revit files. So yes,
That's
it
a
is still
great point.
relevant. Yes.
Like civil sites, all that will never be in Revit. They're always in CAD.
Yep.
True.
Right. And some of the other engineers still just they don't like Revit for whatever reason. So you got to
Yep.
work with both.
There's one question that I think with the pandemic in place, I really want to ask the panelists here for their input. So I'm going to start with Darren on this question. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen experiencing in the wake of the pandemic?
Well, some of the biggest changes with us is, of course, a lot of you are working remote now. You're not in your office. You're out of your office. In some ways, that's good. In other ways, it means that they may not be able to reach you as well, or they may not be able to reach us as well. But there are definite changes going on. I mean, we have always been very responsible with what we do going into a home. In fact, I wear shoe covers, but now I wear gloves, I wear a mask. When I'm in the home and I'm doing treatment with our fiber seal product, I actually switch masks to a respirator that I wear when I spray the treatment, and we've always done that. But we want to be very conscious of what the client wants, and I think that's all of you. When you go into the home, you have to be sensitive to their needs and what they need. When we go into the home, we're very sensitive to how they react and what they want. But making ourselves available to them is very important. And when they call, we try to be available to whatever those questions may be. And if I have questions that they ask me of something that a designer has done, I always refer them back to you. And a lot of times I'll call the designer and I'll say, hey, by the way, I heard this comment while I was in the home, so you might want to check back. But I think listening, being responsive, being careful with what we do and how we do things is just that added extra thing to provide to the client.
Thank you, Darren. Tamara, I'm hoping we can hear you with your audio connection. Let's see if we can. Yeah, you must have some delay because I can see your mouth speaking, but then the audio comes in a few moments later. But I think that question would be really great for your input, just being that you do rep several lines of furniture and you have multiple open lines that you have to account for. So maybe we'll ask that question in an email that we can direct to the students, because I think in general that'd just be really interesting to hear that perspective. So I'm going to go back up to one of the other questions that we were wanting to also ask if we had additional time. Career focus, Adrienne, what is the most important architectural consideration and aspirations when designing a project?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing I've learned over the years is it's really not about you, and it's not about what you like. You really, really have to listen to your client. And I think one of the best things my very first boss ever taught me was there's always 3 options. You have good, better, and best. And you can give that client the good, you can give them the better, or you can give them the best. But it all depends on what's their budget, what aesthetic do they like. I mean, I started out doing residential in Jackson Hole. Everyone wants antler chandeliers and cowboy hats, which is not my style, but I can give you the best antler chandelier you've ever seen. And I can do it on a good budget, a better budget, or the best budget. It just depends on which one of those you fit into. And again, at the end of the day, I did more Western design than you ever want to know about. Do I have any Western in my home? No, because it was never about me. I don't live there. The client does. So I think it's always about steering them in the right direction, depending on all those different things that they like. If they like a certain aesthetic, they have a certain budget, if they have how things need to function or be maintained, if they're really hard on their stuff, you need to find the best solution for that fits all those parameters, and not just think about what you would do if it was your house or your office space or whatever. I think that's what makes a really good designer, is being able to kind of fit yourself and guide them in the right direction.
Yeah, Adrian, that programming portion of, as you're starting a project is super important to understand, what your client's goals and objectives are. So you can understand, budget is a huge important factor when designing a project. And I think as students, in school, you probably don't have to work with a budget as much. That is probably a significant change when you enter into the workforce, is budgets are real and we do have to adhere to them. So good to bring that up, the budget aspect. And then before we transition to the second panelist, Marianne, just being more of that residential background, I would like to hear your take on the question.
Well, my take on that is, and I know that you spoke about budget, but this all happens at the front end of every project, when the client is with the architect, is with the contractor and the designer. When the architect is in the conceptual stage, it is really important to start talking about budget. And as we move forward into the preliminary architectural stage with the client, there again, we start to establish specific line item budgets we have to be cognizant of this from the very, very beginning. I don't care if the client says, it doesn't really matter how much it costs. It does matter. It matters with everybody. And so as we proceed through this, these three stages of architecture, we have to capture the client with them understanding how much it's going to cost to build these homes. And there's a terrible problem here in St. George with this. Contractors that are throwing out, yes, we can build your house for $195 a foot, just to get the contract, and then the owner is in it at $250 a foot before the project is complete. So we as designers, I have taken a lot of responsibility in helping to create these preliminary construction budgets. I feel like we as designers understand material costs and can be a great asset to preparing budgets for clients as we proceed through the projects. So that to me is number one.
Awesome. Well, we are concluded with our first panel discussion. I wish we could continue on. I think all of you have such great insight for these students as they are embarking into their careers as interior designers. I would encourage all of you to, if you have additional questions, you can certainly please direct them to me that pertain to coming into the industry. Adrian, Marianne, Darren, and Tamara, thank you so much for all your time and joining us today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over.